The call came late afternoon, right as I eased the car into the driveway of the house we'd just bought. The paint still smelled new. The lawn lights flickered on automatically, soft and welcoming, like the place was proud to finally belong to someone. My phone buzzed. "Is this Marcus Hale?" The voice was older, rough around the edges, like gravel dragged across concrete. "Yes, who's this?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "I'm the previous owner. Name's Arthur Klein. Look, I'm sorry to call out of the blue, but I forgot something serious." I almost hung up. People forget keys, documents, garage remotes, not things worth calling a stranger over. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then he said it. "There's a camera hidden in the living room ceiling. I forgot to disconnect it from the cloud before the sale." My body locked up. "It's been recording," he went on quickly. "I only noticed today when I opened the old feed by accident. I didn't mean to see anything, but what I saw, I think you need to know." My chest tightened. "What did you see?" Silence stretched long enough to make my skin crawl. "Don't ask over the phone," he finally said. "And don't tell your wife. Come alone. I'll show you everything." The call ended before I could respond. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the front door. Warm light spilled through the windows. Inside, Evelyn's laughter rang out, mingled with her mother's sharp cackle and her sister's, Brooke's, high, familiar giggle. Boxes were stacked everywhere. Music played. It looked like a life being built. I walked in, forcing my face into something neutral. Evelyn smiled at me from the kitchen, a strand of hair stuck to her cheek. "Hey, you okay?" she asked. "Yeah, forgot to grab a few things. Gonna run back out." I kissed her cheek. My heart was hammering hard enough that I was sure she could feel it. As I pulled away from the house, a wrongness settled over me, heavy and cold, like a thin veil had been torn away from a painting I'd admired for years, revealing rot underneath. Whatever Arthur had seen wasn't a mistake, it was a warning. He lived 20 minutes away, in a faded bungalow squeezed behind a gas station. When he opened the door, his hands were shaking. "I didn't want to be involved," he said, ushering me inside. "But I lived in that house for 30 years. It deserved better than this." He led me to a cluttered desk and opened his laptop. "I backed everything up. I'm not keeping it. Just thought you had a right to see." He clicked play. The screen showed the living room, my living room. The timestamp read Tuesday. I'd been at work until 7 that night. Evelyn walked in first, then her mother, Linda, then Brooke. They opened a bottle of wine, glasses clinking, laughter loose and careless. Evelyn dropped onto the couch, kicking off her shoes. "I can't believe he fell for it," she said, grinning. "All that talk about starting fresh, like it's really his house. You did the hard part. Now we just keep him busy while we finalize the switch." "The switch?" I whispered, though no one could hear me. Evelyn pulled a folder from her bag and waved it. "Power of attorney," she said with a smirk. "You said he'd never notice." Linda smiled. "Men like him never do." The sound seemed to vanish from the room. My ears rang. My vision tunneled. Arthur reached over and lowered the volume. "There's more," he said quietly, "but you understand enough." I stood up slowly, legs unsteady. "Send me the entire file, every second." He nodded and transferred the data. When I got home that night, everything looked the same, too normal. Evelyn kissed me, asked if I remembered the milk. Brooke was organizing the garage. Linda was baking something for the neighbors, humming like a woman with nothing to hide. I watched them with new eyes. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every word tasted fake. I smiled back, because now I had the footage, and I wasn't going to confront them, not yet. Over the next few days, I played exhausted, distracted, grateful. I installed microphones in the kitchen and hallway, tucked one beneath the dining table. I routed backups through the home network and quietly upgraded the cloud storage Arthur had forgotten about. They were too confident to notice, and that's when they stopped whispering. "Are you sure he won't contest it?" Brooke asked one night. Evelyn laughed. "He's spineless. 3 more weeks and it's done." Linda chimed in. "Once the funds move, we cut him off. Clean." I sat alone in the garage later, staring at the laptop glow, my hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just betrayal. It was scheduled, organized, funded by my own trust. So I opened a blank spreadsheet. Step 1, find a lawyer who doesn't blink. Step 2, quietly reclaim everything. Step 3, let them think they're winning. The game had started, and this time I wasn't the mark. The lawyer's office sat in a low concrete building on the edge of downtown, the kind of place you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. No flashy sign, no glass walls, just brass letters on the door. Leonard Crowe, Estate and Asset Law. Inside, the air smelled like old paper and black coffee. Leonard himself was in his late 60s, thin, sharp-eyed, with a voice that didn't waste words. "What can I do for you, Mr. Hale?" I didn't give him the whole truth. Not yet. I slid a folder across the desk instead. "I signed a power of attorney 3 months ago," I said. "I want it revoked quietly." His eyebrow lifted. Quiet revocations tend to raise questions. "I'm counting on that," I replied. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we move carefully. Today." By the end of the afternoon, the revocation was filed. Copies were secured. Notifications were delayed just enough to buy me time. Leonard advised me to move fast and leave nothing exposed. So I did. Over the next few days, I shifted bank accounts, pulled investments back under sole ownership, froze secondary access, and resecured the deed to the house. Everything substantial was locked down. What I left behind were empty accounts, illusionary numbers they were already planning to spend. At home, I became the version of myself they expected, the tired husband, the grateful provider, the oblivious man lucky enough to be included in their circle. That Saturday, I walked into the living room with a grin I'd practiced in the car. "Good news," I said. "I got a raise, a big one." Evelyn's eyes lit up instantly. Brooke clapped. Linda beamed like she'd personally earned it. "I told you," Linda said, "all that hard work." I leaned into it. I booked reservations at expensive restaurants, bought a new suit, even gave Evelyn a delicate gold bracelet she admired months ago. They soaked it up, convinced the clock was still ticking in their favor. But I was listening. 2 nights later, Evelyn stepped into the backyard, phone pressed to her ear. I watched through the window, pretending to scroll on my phone. "It's happening next week," she whispered. "He's completely unaware. I've got the forged signature prepped. His name will be off the deed before he realizes anything's wrong." She laughed softly, the sound carrying through the glass like broken ice. That night, I sent Leonard everything. The videos, the audio recordings, screenshots, even footage of Evelyn practicing my signature at the dining table when she thought she was alone. "Prepare the final motion," I wrote. "Emergency filing, Tuesday." His reply came back a minute later. 1 sentence. "It will be decisive." I didn't sleep. Monday morning, I invited them all to dinner. "A celebration," I said. "The bonus cleared." They fell for it without hesitation. Steaks, wine, candles, laughter spilling over the table. I wore the bracelet Evelyn had given me months ago, the one she said symbolized trust. Halfway through dinner, Brooke lifted her glass. "To Evelyn," she said brightly, "future owner of this beautiful home." They laughed. I stood too, raised my glass. "Let's toast again tomorrow. I've got something special planned." They cheered, already tasting victory. Tuesday morning arrived calm and clear. I wore a plain gray shirt, no watch, no cologne, nothing flashy. Evelyn came downstairs in a red dress, radiant with confidence. Brooke poured mimosas. Linda paced, talking loudly on the phone about how this was their last week living under someone else's roof. At exactly 9 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Evelyn frowned. "Were you expecting someone?" I opened the door. Leonard stepped inside, carrying a thick manila folder. Behind him stood a uniformed court officer. "Morning, Marcus," Leonard said calmly. "Ready?" I turned to the living room. "Sit down," I said. "All of you." Evelyn scoffed. "What is this?" The officer unfolded a document. "Evelyn Cross, you are being served a cease and desist regarding attempted property fraud and signature forgery." Brooke shot to her feet. "This is insane." Leonard smiled faintly. "You'll also notice an immediate freeze on all joint accounts pending investigation." Linda screamed, "You can't do this." "I already did." I leaned forward. Their faces drained as the words sank in. "While you were planning to cut me out, I reclaimed everything. You own nothing. This house, the accounts, even that bracelet on your wrist, mine." Evelyn stared at me like she'd never seen me before. I slid a USB drive across the table. "Every conversation, every plan, it's already backed up. Try anything, and it goes public." Silence swallowed the room. "Pack your things," I said. "You have until sunset." Linda screamed again. Brooke cried. Evelyn just stood there, frozen, her perfect plan collapsing around her. And I knew this still wasn't the end. They didn't move at first. Shock pinned them in place like insects in glass. The court officer cleared his throat, the sound sharp and official, and that was enough to break the spell. Drawers began slamming. Cabinets opened and shut. The house filled with the noise of hurried hands and panicked breaths. "This isn't fair," Linda shouted from the hallway, "after everything we've done for you." I laughed softly. "You mean everything you've planned to do to me?" Brooke emerged with an armful of clothes, mascara already streaking her face. "We were just trying to help Evelyn. She deserves security." "Security?" I asked. "By stealing it?" Evelyn finally spoke. Her voice was thin, controlled, like glass stretched too far. "Marcus, please, we can talk about this, alone." "In private?" I said, "like you talked about me when you thought I couldn't hear?" She reached for my arm. I stepped back. "You involved them. You plotted with them. You rehearsed my signature like a party trick. Don't ask me for mercy now." The court officer glanced at his watch. "If they're not out by 6, I'll escort them." That did it. Suitcases appeared from closets. Shoes were tossed into bags. The confidence they'd worn like armor cracked into something desperate and small. I walked upstairs, shutting the bedroom door behind me, and sat on the edge of the bed while the house emptied itself of lies. By the time the sun dipped low, painting the windows in orange and red, the front yard was cluttered with luggage. Evelyn stood on the porch last, her dress wrinkled, her eyes swollen and red. "This was our home," she said weakly. "No," I replied from the doorway. "It was my mistake." She opened her mouth to say something else, then stopped. There was nothing left to argue. She turned and walked down the steps. I locked the door behind them, but I wasn't finished. An hour later, I was downtown, riding an elevator to the top floor of a glass high-rise. The conference room at Wilcox and Grant was pristine, polished to the point of intimidation. The senior partner across from me flipped through the file Leonard had prepared. "You understand what this does? Forgery, fraud, abuse of legal authority. Her career will be over before it starts." "I understand," I said. He nodded slowly. "Then we proceed." I signed where indicated and stood, shaking his hand. As the elevator descended, my phone buzzed. Notifications stacked up one after another. Evelyn's professional profile flagged, internship offers quietly withdrawn, messages flooding in, questions she wouldn't be able to answer. By midnight, it was done. Back home, the house was silent in a way it had never been before. I poured a glass of bourbon and sat on the porch, the air cold and sharp against my skin. For the first time in months, my thoughts were clear. I thought about the version of myself they'd seen, the man who trusted too easily, the man who believed love meant surrender. They'd mistaken kindness for weakness. My phone buzzed once more, a message from an unknown number. You didn't have to destroy her life. I typed back without hesitation. You destroyed it when you decided it was something to steal. I blocked the number and set the phone face down. The house creaked softly behind me, settling into itself, no longer holding secrets that weren't mine. Tomorrow, I'd change the locks. Next week, I'd repaint the walls. In time, the echoes of their voices would fade. They'd thought they were smarter, thought I'd stay quiet, thought I'd never see the trap until it closed. They were wrong. I finished the bourbon, stood, and went inside, shutting the door on the last chapter of a life built on lies.